Hi. Okay, so Hollyn's gonna do this video with me. This is Hollyn, my
Hi guys.
best friend who's been on this wild ride with me. So I guess I'll just real quick from last time, we'd gone to see Nina, the medium, on September 14th, and Hollyn had gotten a little more clarity than I did out of the situation. At that point, we had learned that we had a soul contract, which we'll talk about we'll go into that a little more in a little bit. But I think I'll just kind of start with how Hollyn and I met, and let her talk a little bit more to her background and her experience with Nina, because she has at that point in time especially, she had some stuff happening to her that I couldn't relate to or that I couldn't speak to, and I think that it's important for we're sharing a story to for other people to hopefully relate to it, or anyway, I just want her to be able to tell stuff parts that I can't speak to as well. So yeah, I think the map dream was kind of one of them, and that's part of the reason that I'll let Hollyn kind of talk about the prior to seeing Nina, the map dreams that she was having, and kind of one of the reasons we went there, and then how it played out the following week. And one of the things I had noticed, or I had forgot to say in my last video, was so it was the second week of September. I had quit the job that I had. I just knew that it was bad news and it wasn't good for me, and I didn't need to be there. And so I had quit my job prior to seeing Nina, so that was kind of a factor in stuff. And then there was one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, and I had even got started seeing a new therapist, because I was all this crazy stuff was happening to me that I couldn't explain, and you better believe I covered all my bases before putting my life on blast. So anyway, but that kind of ironically ties into Hollyn's profession. So yeah, I guess I'll let you just kind of
Take it away.
Yeah.
Okay. So Grace and I met when I was 14 and she was 15, and it was really weird. We were at this party the summer before my sophomore year of high school, and we just locked eyes across the party from each other.
Well, we decided to jump in the pool.
We did. But she was like, somebody jump in the pool with me, and we met eyes, and then I was like, okay, why not?
Hashtag fate.
And from then on, we were just kind of more like sisters.
Yeah.
We spent 24/7 together. Just she'd be at my house waiting for me when I was done with cheer practice, and we would just be together all night until it was time to go to bed. And sometimes even then we'd stay together. And
I know we got away with things that I don't know how we
I don't know.
To this day.
Sorry, Mom.
There's just
Also, sorry, Julie.
yeah. They're it's just funny, because as we've kind of gone along, in the past 2 weeks, I'd say particularly, I have noticed so many things in hindsight, just things that you're just stuff is just written in the stars. And then once you start to realize it, and you kind of, especially the journey that we've been on, you look back at stuff in hindsight and things are oh, they just make so much more sense.
So much more sense.
Or you're yeah, anyway, there's just so I don't know, even kind of abilities that we've had that if you would have said that could we communicate telepathically prior, I'd been no, both of us would have been
yeah,
no, we're just really good friends. But then now you look back in hindsight and you're
oh,
guess
that's why we knew what the other person was thinking.
I guess it always has
the
kind of
entire
been
time.
like this. So anyway, sorry, so
That's okay.
yeah, so
I mean, kind of fast forward to today, we're still friends, and we live a mile away from each other, and everything. So we both moved to Kansas City about 5 years ago, and everything just kind of fell into place. We had planned this a million years ago. Well, come to find out we did. But at the time, it was just kind of oh, we're supposed to really reconnect in the way that we once were connected. Because long story short, I went to college out of state for a while, and blah, 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 blah. We went to different schools. So it was just kind of and we're back together.
Things all fell into place while everything was falling out of place.
Yeah,
I guess you
exactly.
I guess you could say.
And I don't know, but anyways, even if you ask all of our friends, we've just always had this like weird connection, and just like have like my mom's always thought of Grace also as like another daughter, and just anyways, we've just been close. So then this year,
all this nonsense started happening to the point of like
like in so my whole life I had like, even as a young child, like I have seen things and heard things and known things that other people didn't see or hear or know, and like
including me if you would have asked me anyway.
Like, small example, like when I was really little, I would be terrified throughout the entire night and wouldn't want to get out of my bed and I'd be yelling to my mom like, I can't get out of my bed and come into your bed because they're out there, they're in the hallway, like they're stopping me from coming over there, and like I meant spirits. So and then even in like adulthood, I thought I was having just really lucid dreams, like dreams that were like to the point where I'm like, no, that felt so real. Like I was really talking to my grandpa who passed 10 years ago, but or like XYZ, it felt like it really happened to me in this dream that I was in, but it was like I was awake, but I wasn't.
Kind of like leading up to seeing Nina, like that week prior, that's kind of when I had like been told by Melissa at that point about like my abilities. Things started to happen, so things were happening to me, but then when you started to have the dreams that like
it was like escalated. So
I think
she knew I was losing my track of time.
Yeah, I think that's where we were going.
So all these crazy things have been happening to Grace and at her house in the last like 8 months or so, but like as they're happening to her, my things started escalating too, and it started to not just be a dream. Like I started to recognize like what has happened to me my entire life was real. Like I really was seeing souls. I really was talking to spirits that haven't passed over. I really was having these experiences in a different state of consciousness. And I know that's not going to make very clear sense right now, and we'll explain this in later videos, but essentially what I thought was a dream was reality, was really happening. And so, for example, the week before we went to see Nina, I was having what I thought were dreams, and it was like so real, like these two guys were talking to me, and it felt like they were telling me to come with them, to follow them. They had something to show me. But I felt terrified because I thought, like, I knew I was awake and I couldn't move, I couldn't talk. I wanted to scream for Brendan's help, my fiance, but I like couldn't.
Name dropped.
Sorry, Bren. Well, everybody's gonna know who my fiance is anyways, but
you're right. Sorry, I've always just tried to be so careful about like not bringing anyway. Okay.
Well, screw it.
Yeah, you're right.
He's my soulmate, so it's fine. Anyways, point is that I like thought I was like in this like sleep paralysis, but it was really happening. And then the soul, the spirit that was trying to take me with them to like another state of consciousness would let go because they knew I was too afraid to go, and then I would all of a sudden be like totally out of the state and be able to like grab Brendan and like put his arms around me because I was so scared that they were going to take me. And this just like kept happening. And so
where you would wake up feeling paralyzed and you couldn't ask for help until they would eventually give up on trying to take you. Yeah. Then you could like reach over and tell Brendan something weird's
happening. Yeah. And so then I finally told Grace that I was like this. It kept happening. And then like during the day, I'd be feeling like super dizzy and just like couldn't focus on my work. And then finally, the day before we went to see Nina, I work from home unless I have clients. Then I go to my office. So I like could not focus on my paperwork that I was working on. I was in my pajamas, slippers on, and everything.
Oh, I forgot about this.
And I just like shut down shop, grabbed all my stuff and my dog, and like Brendan works from home too. So I was like, I gotta go. I'll be back. And he was like, what is happening right now? So I just got in my car, and I know I was either going to drive to my mom's or drive to Grace's. And I just like autopilot drove to Grace's, but honestly it wasn't autopilot. I just knew at the time subconsciously that she was the one that was going to understand all of this and be able to like help me through it too. And so I just like roll up to her house, and I'm like, literally something is happening to me, and I don't know what's going on. That's the day I channeled.
I know, I was just gonna say that, but I didn't know if we wanted to. Yeah. Well, okay, you know what? We're 10 minutes in the video. We might as well. So, this is good, actually. This is actually perfect.
Okay.
This is prior to Nina.
Yeah.
Okay, so Hollyn, like, comes, like, you know, in the door, pajamas, slippers, tizzy in one hand, in, like...
Name drop. I'm just
wait,
joking.
Tizzy, oh my God, the dog. Anyway, and so, yeah, and she comes flying in here, and I was like, sorry, I haven't even looked at my phone in a couple hours, and she's like, no, I didn't call, which, yeah, we have keys and everything. Yeah. That's not abnormal. Usually it's just me flying through their door at 2 or 3 a.m. with the garage code and Desmond going crazy. Anyway, so she was, saying about these dreams, and at that point, like, we had known about my abilities, and weird stuff was happening with me, but I was like, listen, I can't help you. Don't look to me, like... And that's another thing, is at the time, like, this is, like, I was feeling much more like galactic stuff, kind of like, I guess what, for lack of a better term, like alien and kind of like universal outside planetary systems, like knowledge of higher dimensional beings that were being downloaded, and then like personal stuff with me, like flash forward memories, or, like timeline is not linear, and like I was shown stuff that has happened but hasn't happened yet. And anyway, so my stuff was very different than like Hollyn and her like spirituality and like, kind of the stuff that resonated with her and that she could relate to. So when she came in and was kind of like telling me about these dreams, I'm like, listen, I don't know anything about the spiritual world except I live in a freak show and I want nothing to do with it. It didn't resonate. But then we went and got food and then came back, and we were on the couch, and...
Well, it was in the car. On the way home, I was like, Grace, whoever's been trying to talk to me is in the car. Like, whoever's been trying to pull me into this place is in the car with us. Like, I don't know how I know this. It's a man. He's sitting in the back seat between the two of us.
Tizzy was worked up.
Like...
She was the I think she was the...
No, we didn't bring any of the dogs. I just was like, I know it.
Were they inside worked up?
Okay.
I was like, I remember the dogs.
They were worked up inside,
okay.
And then we left and went and got food and came back, and like in the car ride home, I'm like, they're trying to talk to me again.
Oh yeah.
And so then you were like, okay, well, try, because I don't want that to come into my house.
Yeah, I was like, well, you better sort that out and figure it out, because we're not bringing anyone else into my house. So, like, get on your A game, tell them to stay here, like, stay out of the house at least. Like,
and, like, backstory to that is I've always been able to, like, I always, like, have said a prayer of protection and, like, been able to
clear spirits out
of a place. Yeah.
Hollyn's always been able to do that.
Yeah. So she's like, figure it out, because he's not coming inside. And so I like just take some deep breaths and like close my eyes and essentially try to meditate, because long story short, what the whole point of all of this is that it's not a dream. It is you taking yourself into a different state of consciousness, which is what you do when you meditate. So you can do it awake or asleep. And sometimes it's easier for the spiritual world, the soul world, to reach you when you're asleep, because your body, your human, is more relaxed. But we'll get more into that at a different time. Yeah. So I'm sitting there trying to just like trance into this spirit that's in the car, and I just was like, I can't do it. But Grace, guess what? He's already been inside your house, so we're going inside. She's like, whatever. So we go inside. Like, the dogs are going wild, and they both, like, come. I'm, like, laying on the couch, like, with my eyes closed, and Desmond, he's freaking huge. He literally comes and sits his butt like on me, and then my dog's like this big, and she comes and just like sits nestled into me like up here. So they're like clearly knowing something is going on. Well,
I was not being helpful.
She was not.
I was sitting there, I think, like with the coffee in my hand, like just figure this out. Like,
yeah.
I was worn out at that point.
So, worn
out at that point.
Yo, so worn out. But about 2.5 seconds later, I was like, I just heard this voice in my head saying, grab your phone, open up your notepad. And so I did. And like my thumbs were just moving without me moving them. And this entire message was just like written out, basically, essentially.
I haven't talked about channeling or anything, so
we'll talk more about it later.
Yeah, we'll go way more into like how channeling can work and the different forms and all that. It's gonna have to be like not today, but anyway.
Essentially,
channeling.
we get this message from the spiritual world saying both of us need to stop living in fear because we're here for a purpose, and
trust ourselves,
trust them. Like that it's okay to listen, to go with them, to hear what they have to say, because they're here to protect us, not to hurt us, and we cannot fulfill our life purpose in fear, and is essentially what they said. So
but we didn't know who the message at that point in time,
who it was from.
We were like, holy shit, you like you channel the message, but we were just like, this is weird. Like, it was just a new thing that had happened, like, kind of like, we just started to realize when we were together, like, more crazy stuff like this was happening.
And it's kind of the first time it had happened when I was awake. Like, I had had things like that happen before when I was asleep, but this was the first time that I was dead awake.
To my knowledge, if you ask me, I never had those experiences, period, which cannot be true, but
yeah,
I've only recently come to understood that like the last week or so. But anyway, so this was like one of just those moments of like, just stuff like this was happening, and like we didn't have words for it. Like we didn't know at that time, like that was called channeling a message. Like that was just like, holy shit, how'd they get through? I'm sorry. How did they get through? And, or how did that just happen? And like, who's this message from? Or like, and so all we had, our only understanding of stuff at that point was Hollyn was able to communicate with the spirit realm, kind of like what we would be calling ghost in limbo, or kind of that. And then I was getting like communications of like kind of like bigger planetary, higher dimensions than Earth. And so it's like we could relate and our powers got stronger together, but then we were like, the same material that resonated with me didn't with Hollyn, and vice versa. And so, and still, like, to this day, like, our passive aligned more as we've realized, like, we've understood the overlap and how it all, like, we've gotten a better understanding of kind of how it all goes together. Mm-hmm. Somewhat. We still have a lot more. I mean, it's just, there's so much out there. But to this day, sometimes, like, one of us will be, like, really excited about, like, a connection or dots we've put together, or, like, something that has happened, or a resource that we found, or, oh my God, guess what? I just found out what all this stuff all these messages I got, this is what this means. Like, and it's like, wrapped up with like clarity with a bow on it. And it's like, it'll be huge to one of us, but then the other one will be like, cool. Like, yeah, it's awesome. I support you. I'm happy you're excited.
But also it's like this thing of like, yeah, duh. Like, I already knew that about you.
Yeah, so that's been another weird thing. Like, we have like really been lucky enough to like connect with some like really, really reputable mediums and like really cool people who have like kind of helped us on this journey so far, to like, as we've tried to uncover like how we know all this and what it is we know and why this is happening and what this means. And it's like one of us will get this like one of us personally will consider like mind-blowing reading or clarity, and then the other one's like, yeah, that like I already knew all that.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like it's just like really weird.
It's like we think really differently and we say things very differently sometimes, but yet we're thinking and feeling the same thing. Like we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. And it just has happened even more as we like are getting these confirmations and affirmations and messages, you know, that it's like, oh, well, yeah, I already knew that about you, or oh, yeah, like,
and that's kind of like part of like what our soul contract like has. That's part of the reason we are so tied together is because, you know, so
wait, time out. We just like squirreled because the soul contract.
I know. Well,
we're gonna explain it right now.
What were you just saying before that though?
The channeling message, and then the next thing that happened is we contacted to try to get a reading that night, but then he told us to come the next day, and then that's when Nina told us about soul contracts.
Yes. Did you want to talk more about what you were doing with Nina? Because I was just going to say, like, it made sense as far as, like, why our soul contracts are tied together, or why we have a soul contract in, because the other one that can fill in the blanks for the that's kind of where I was going with that.
So say that, and I'm just going to add in, we got this information the next day.
Now I'm confused, so you just say it all.
No, go.
I don't know.
This is what happens. See?
Sorry.
This.
I forgot. I totally forgot we were... Okay.
Time out and time back in.
Okay.
Okay. So just go ahead and say what you were saying. We were saying the same thing.
No, I forgot though.
You were talking about why we're soul contract.
So you just go.
Okay. So we have a soul contract, and what that means is before we came to this world as Grace and Hollyn, as souls, Grace asked me to come to this life with her because we have a mission to fulfill. Now, do you remember?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
So yes, like I think I said in my last video, like we all prior to incarnating here, we all have a purpose and like a plan and what we need to do. And so you, in order to, depending on like what, like, I don't know, kind of level your mission is, or whatever it is, whatever your purpose that you have come here for, you know, kind of plan out like what you need to happen. And so souls grow by learning lessons and growing through pain and through different experiences. So anyway, so you kind of put a plan in place. Your higher self, the higher dimensional you is luckily much smarter, much more like in tune with the universe, because when you're born, when a piece of your soul that we all know each other as here, when it incarnates into Earth, when you incarnate into below the fourth dimension, on planet Earth, you forget everything. And so it's kind of this path to remembering. So prior to you coming here, in order for you to get those experiences that you want to learn and to carry out purpose and to carry out missions, you put a plan in place. And your soul you can put a soul contract in place. And a soul contract can mean, it can be like a soul contract, like for us in this case, where it's just like, we instantly felt like sisters, and we have a very interconnected purpose in life, and like we're kind of like in this together for the long haul. And I had chose Hollyn because it had to be her, like it had to be this person in order to kind of keep me going. And then it can also soul contracts. They can also be soul mates. So like that kind of feeling that the standard romantic soulmate partner is also a soul contract. You agree to it prior to coming here, but a soulmate isn't like necessarily like we all, prior to everything we've learned, I always thought like that just was like the top tier, like everybody only has one soulmate and whatever. Well, then you introduce karmic relationships, and that is something that's a lot of times it's like an empath narcissist dynamic, or a karmic relationship is it's basically like one or both of you, there is a lesson you didn't learn in a past life, or a debt you have to pay off for some reason. And so a karmic relationship is typically one that is kind of like love hard, fight hard, and you think you're just consumed with this like passionate emotion for each other, but really there's like so many unhealthy underlying tendencies of like disrespectful communication between the two of you, or one person is very selfish and one person is selfless, and it's actually like, you just kind of, it's easy to write off as this like passionate love relationship, when really it's just like very unhealthy, a lot of healthy underlying behaviors that have become norms that should not be. And until you're out of a karmic relationship, and in hindsight, you're like, what the hell was that? So, and then there's another example of a soul contract, which is not really a soul contract because it existed. Anyway, but there's this thing called twin flames, and there's different theories on it. I think table details for like later down the road, but I know, like,
I think the point of all of this is that, like, again, there's purposes for all relationships on this earth that were created and decided on before coming here.
Thank you, Hollyn.
You're welcome.
We're gonna leave it at that for now.
Yeah. And so, anyways,
so our soul contract, as far as like, okay, we understood what a soul contract was. There was a name for like whatever, like
it was like, oh, yeah, that's why we've been so close our whole life.
Yeah, and Hollyn basically was able to fill in the gaps that were not my strong suits or were not part of my lessons and purposes here, that were gonna keep me upright and moving forward when I like hit rock bottom and dug for oil. And
well, and it worked for my soul too, because there's a lot of things that I've learned and healed from in this life
process.
And that I needed that healing, and I'm still healing, honestly. But
and Hollyn, she's always talked about like she's felt like she has always carried a lot of like past life trauma. So your soul learns and grows through each like relate, like every lifetime you have, which even as of a couple years ago or less, like if you'd asked me about reincarnation, I'd been like, screw that concept or theory. Like I just want to, like, one life's enough. I want to go to heaven when I die and have everyone I know on the other side, happy as can be, have it be cut and dry. Like, I'm not cool with this whole like reincarnation theory. But that was something that was just really never, I don't know, did not set well to me. Kind of like trying to wrap my mind around parallel universes and stuff. I just had no, I just was kind of just put me in a mood to talk about. And Hollyn, she was always like, I just know that I carry like all this, like, she felt like she like always was so connected to this Spanish culture she couldn't explain, or like Atlantis timeline, when Atlantis sank. And like, she always has like known that she like has lived these different lives, and like there's just parts of the world that are home to her for reasons, or cultures or traditions that are just home to her and in her heart and soul that she hasn't been able to explain. And
tell Nina.
And so like, and that was not something I could relate to, but I could always relate to feeling like my whole life like I wanted to like jump out of my body, or have this like desire to go like run and jump and backflip off of like a cliff, like like not like
maybe not quite so literally, but
like just adrenaline
free.
Junkie, just like I just like felt like, I always just was like all the way up.
Like, we've always been down for adventures, and most of the time it's her idea, but I go along with it, but because it sounds fun.
Yeah,
why not?
Good at going rogue. But yeah, so it's like we just have had these like different experiences, but then all like
very similar.
Yeah, so I feel like it's kind of like cool, like it adds just the dynamic to this whole journey and like experience, and balance to whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we saw Nina. Do you want to talk about like maybe the past life regression or dreams, not being scared? We'll kind of circle back to that, and then I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess Nina just like really opened a lot of things for me. Like, similar to Grace, there were things that she told me like, I'm not getting answers. I have something like a block here, but a lot of it was, she was like, it's in you, like you have created these blocks like in your chakras, and you don't allow yourself or anyone else to go there because of the trauma that you've experienced. And I have experienced quite a bit of trauma as Hollyn in this life, and she brought up the idea of you should do a past life regression because you're carrying trauma from other lives. And I was like, oh, wow. I have felt all the, like she was saying, all these connections to all these other places, and like felt like I would always joke like, oh, in a past life I was Latino or whatever, you know, but come to find out I really was. So yeah, so I got like clarity from her in things, but also this like big message of trust yourself. You already know all this stuff. You don't need to ask all these other people things because you have these abilities yourself. Like you can talk to spirits, you can talk to souls, you can do things that you're like going to these professionals for. And so I was like, that's interesting and scary. So I'm gonna go ahead and schedule a past life regression with someone else. So yeah, I did this past life regression, which honestly, I'm wondering if we should, it's up to you, but I wonder if we should talk about that in a different video.
I agree. That's a different thing.
Because the big thing that happened the next week after Nina was when I stayed at your house.
So, yeah, so Nina had said to Hollyn, basically, I guess in a nutshell, correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing to be scared of.
Yes.
These are your guides trying to show you something. Don't.
Oh yeah, okay. So when I was being like pulled to this place, and I like the week before, and I was waking up paralyzed or whatever, Nina clarified, no, that's really happening. It's your spirit guides. You have 2 of them, and they're trying to.
2 in this case. Everybody has a different amount of spirit guides, different types for different reasons. But there were 2.
Me personally, I had 2
who were trying to
show me things.
A message in this particular example. But that is not always not a blanket statement for anybody.
Okay, good clarification. So anyway, she was like, just trust them. Like, you can go with them. You're gonna come back as Hollyn. It's fine. Like, I guess part of me was fearful, like, that's the end. If I go with them, I'm dead. Like, and she's like, that's not the case. So, I was still kind of like skeptical about it, and like wasn't really, she was like, all you have to do is go to bed like setting the intention that you're okay and you're not afraid anymore, and you'll go with them. And I didn't do it, and I didn't do it, and I didn't do it. But then I stayed with her, Grace, the following weekend.
So like it would have been like or a weeknight or something. It was third week of September.
Yeah. For some reason, Brendan, well, not for some reason, he was out of town for work. So it was either a weeknight or a weekend. Anyways, I don't like staying by myself, so I stayed here.
Same.
And
living a freak show.
Yeah. So Tizzy and I come over, and like Grace is like sleeping peacefully all night long, which does not happen.
No,
especially in this home.
So I was in my bedroom, and Hollyn was in the guest bedroom next, like to, there's like
catty, no, they're not catty corner. Their
doors are like, 2 different corners. So anyway, and so the next morning, like we were like up pretty late, but then the next morning, when I woke up and I was like, I had actually slept, things didn't happen. Desmond wasn't up all night. I kind of woke up being like, I just knew. I woke up and I was just like,
what happened?
What happened? Because I don't wake up from just like a night's sleep. Like that doesn't exist here. So it was kind of like I opened my eyes and it was instantly like, oh no.
Oh no.
Like,
yeah.
And so I like was just kind of like, Hollyn, and from like my room to the room around the corner, and her door was open, and she was like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, I knew it.
So okay, like also I'm a mental health therapist. I have a master's and a license in marriage and family therapy, and I work with trauma cases a lot. And so this whole time, like I've been, obviously from my own life experiences of the other world, I have been very empathetic and understanding and believing everything Grace is saying, but
you witnessed a lot of it.
And I witnessed a lot of it, but at the same time, sometimes from a therapist standpoint, I did wonder, like, okay, yes, this is all happening, and are we maybe spiraling out of control with our anxiety thoughts and making it worse than it really is? Well, when I stayed the night here, I realized, no, it is really that bad. These things are seriously happening 24/7, every minute of the day. And some days are even worse than others. And
because she had stayed here plenty of nights before, and like, and that was part of it. Like the black Suburbans, like when I was like, Hollyn, there are black Suburbans, and she's like, okay, well, I've stayed there a handful of nights. I have yet to see them.
Yeah.
Like, are you sure? And I kept being like, yes. Like, they're like, and I would be like frustrated at times because like, I don't lie, and she believes she knows like if I'm like just like being dramatic or like.
Right.
Over exaggerating.
Yeah. Exaggerating.
But and so this like black Suburban thing, that was one of the things that like she had not witnessed for herself out of all the weird stuff.
And like, not that I didn't believe that she was seeing them, but I was like, are you sure that they're really there like for you? Like, you know, like, okay, what do you do with that? And so anyways, I only slept for like 1 hour that night because otherwise I could feel spirits in the room or see spirits in the room. And the dogs were like back and forth between her room and my room, on my bed, off the bed, downstairs, wanting to go outside, like whining, everything. And so the 1 hour that I did sleep was not actually sleep. I went into this trance that we'll talk about later, but I essentially set the intention that I would let my spirit guides take me. And so I went with them, and they show me this like
the map you've been seeing.
Like, it's like a GPS map that I was like, what is this? And they finally say to me, this is like the area that you and Grace live in, and no matter where you are, they know where you are. Like whether you're at your house, her house, wherever, like they're following you. And like it's not safe, like you're not okay. And I was like, what? So I wake up, or like come out of this like conscious state, and I was like, what just happened? Like, how do I see? It was like somebody else's GPS, and I was like looking in on their GPS, and like, you are here was like this blue like dot on the map. So then the dogs wanted to go out like right then. So I was like, fine. I get up. It's like 4 o'clock or so. We go downstairs, and I stand at the back door with them, and all of a sudden, from like, here's Grace's backyard, and this is like the side street, and like this is her house.
The fence, the metal fence along the street that is short, that provides no like privacy protection.
Yeah. So it's like that side of the yard. The dogs are over there like barking, and all of a sudden I see these lights like turn on, and this black Suburban comes up and is like parallel with Desmond and Tizzy, and just the dogs, and like rolls down the window and just like looks and points at me, and just stares at me. And then I was like, okay, dogs, come inside. The Suburban like revs its engine and like peels out its tires and speeds down and disappears like into the neighborhood. And at that point I was like, what the F? I no longer have any doubt in my mind. This shit's crazy. What, we gotta get you out of here. What the hell have we been waiting for? Like, game
here
over. Here we
still
still are. So I end up like laying on the couch the rest of the night and turn on some of her like galactic resources and stuff, because at this point I'm like, this is past the spiritual things that I've witnessed before. Like, I need something. I need some answers here. So,
but when we had left, so that was kind of like unsettling, because at that point, like I had always known there were like my whole life, but then particularly in the last like year and a half, it always feels like the good, the higher divine dimensions, the good knows about me and knows what I'm doing, as does the bad. And I don't know how I've known that my whole life, or where that feeling came from. How I had that feeling prior to, I definitely know why or how, or the emotions, or what has led to me firmly standing in all of my soul's belief behind that feeling in the last year and a half, living in this wake-up call house. But prior to that, like my whole life growing up, I don't know how I always just had this feeling like I'm being watched, and I just know that by the good and the bad.
Right.
It's just like this weird feeling I always had, and I didn't really talk about it. I didn't really to many people. Because it's just like an odd thing to think or say.
Yeah.
Or feel or whatever. And so I like when Hollyn the next morning when she was like, oh my God, it's like we got to get out of here, and I'm just like, I told you.
Yeah.
Like to me it was just like freaking finally.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm pretty sure you said that.
It probably wasn't as polite. But yes. And so, and in Nina, like even though like Hollyn had gotten more clarity and more direct answers of the spectrum of stuff she had asked with Nina. But for me, I had not, besides, because most of the questions my guides were telling Nina, she has the answers, she needs to trust herself. No, she doesn't get body scan answers from anybody else. She has to sort through what these messages mean and what timeline on her own and this, that, and the other. And like, so, I felt like I was at rock bottom and the world didn't understand. And I was like angry and frustrated with the other side because I'm like, this is not fair. Like, my life has like been wrecked. Now you all are like wrecking my life even more and then telling me I already know what to do. Like, just bullshit. Anyway, so I was like not in like the friendliest of states. Like, I was just much more like frustrated and angry that I like felt this way.
And rightfully so. I mean,
yeah. And so
your whole world was different.
Like, and getting weirder, and like nobody could relate to this. And it's just like, add it to the list of things that happen to me in life that are weird. But all for a reason. Anyway, so Nina, though, the amazing thing that she was able to do though for me was that night after we left, she had texted me over the next couple of days, some of her friends who were connected in the galactic realm. She had texted me a couple of YouTube channels of like resources that would help like me kind of like familiarize or see if I could resonate or relate to any of the stuff, like if that was up my alley of what I was trying to describe or things that were happening to me that were like, friendly resources. Oh yeah. And then also from that, I had gotten in touch with her throughout her connections with a galactic medium who could give me a lot more answers. So next time I'll go into how, kind of where we picked up with like the overlap between spiritual realm, galactic realm, and some of those galactic resources that really started to help me understand and resonate with what was happening and started to like allow me to have vocab to put to these things. Because prior it had just been like, when you have a child who's like 5, or if they're at the doctor, you like just point to smiley faces to like identify emotions or how you're feeling because you don't have words to put to it. Or like, a 5-year-old's not going to tell you like, oh, my parents got divorced and now, there's a new baby at this household and I have to share a room at the other household, or they can't put their emotions, they just cry or lash out or don't listen to rules and like they don't have words to it. And that's kind of what I felt like I was going through the adult version of, like I couldn't find words to put to any of the stuff that was happening or what I was seeing. Or so anyway, Nina's resources, like that was a major saving grace at that point in time because it kind of got us headed in the right direction. So
definitely. So I gotta go see clients.
And we'll pick up next time.
Bye,
Love you all.
guys. Thanks
Bye.
for having me.